Alright, what's going on, guys? We're just a little bit under a week away from the Game Awards, and there's a very big chance we're going to get some big Elden Ring news at the Game Awards, and I am so hyped for that. And so I wanted to come on here and give my top 5 things that I want to see in Elden Ring, and just kind of like my little wish list for the game whenever it decides to come out. But before we begin, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not already. I've noticed the vast majority of you aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you don't mind, go ahead and hit that button so you can keep up to date with my content and the latest news for Elden Ring. And guys, make sure you go follow the Instagram. That is where I can interact with you the most, and we've been having a lot of fun over there playing a boss elimination game to figure out what everybody's favorite Dark Souls boss is, and that's been a lot of fun, so make sure you go follow that at Instagram, Ziostorm Gaming. And without any further ado, let's get into my top 5 things that I want to see in Elden Ring. Alright, so the first thing that I want to see is a new combat system. I know everybody loves the rolls and the attacks of Dark Souls, but we've had that redone so many times, and when Sekiro came out, it really gave us a new look at what can be achieved in this engine. Now, Bloodborne kinda had a different approach to that too, but the dashes really weren't that different from the rolls. I know it focused a lot more on positioning than it did dodging, and personally, I would really like to see what they think can be done to really spice up the combat from what we've seen in the past few games. Now, if you've been following Elden Ring leaks, it looks like we're going to have a new system that involves arms and like the new attachment of different arms that you can pick up from bosses and enemies. That might be pretty similar to the prosthetic tool in Sekiro, I don't know yet, but Phil Spencer did come out and say that the new mechanics that Miyazaki was working on are some of the most ambitious he's ever done, and I'm really excited to see what they do. Now, if the game does come out and we still have that same core dodging with the rolls and then attacking gameplay that we've seen over the past several Dark Souls games and Demon Souls, I would not be disappointed because that system is tried and true and everybody loves it. But I would be really excited to see something new, and I think it is time for something new as well. I'm also not saying that the system from Sekiro needs to come back because I don't think that's true. I think that should stay in Sekiro because that's what makes the game so special. I just think we need a new combat system that's a little more involved and involves a little more flexibility with the controls rather than just rolling to dodge the attack. Maybe they could implement some of the same styles from Sekiro, like the posture bar and the deflection system. But I don't think the deflection system should be the same. Maybe if you have a shield, you could focus on doing something like that to eliminate your enemy's posture. Or if you have your sword, maybe it does a little less posture, but you can also move around quicker. I'm not too sure. I'm just spewing out some ideas here. But let me know down in the comments, if the new combat system were to come, what would you want to see it be? But let's move on to the next thing now. Alright, so the next thing that I want to see is a more interactable world. Now let me preface this by saying there's nothing wrong with Dark Souls' world in the game. I think they're excellently crafted, but if we really think about it, their main function serves as boundaries for the gameplay. And there's only a couple things that you can actually interact with in the world itself, aside from doors and ladders. That's about it. I just think it's time we see something a little more involved with the player. Since we're actually getting that open world, I think we're going to need a lot more than just doors and ladders to do in the world itself. Now what exactly that is, I'm not too sure. Now don't flame me for saying this, but I think we need to take a comparison to Skyrim when it comes to this world interactivity. In Skyrim, as you're exploring the open world, you can find items, flowers, and ingredients for potions that can be used to upgrade your character and your weapons and stuff like that. And you can also mine for the materials that you need to craft new weapons. And I think in Elden Ring, maybe we could go mine for some Titanite or whatever the upgrade system in that is. But I just think there needs to be more things to do interacting with the world itself as you explore and go throughout the game. But that's just some thoughts I have to make it a little more fun. Alright, so the next thing I want to see are some more in-depth NPC side quests that we can go on in our playthrough. Now, if you watched my last video, you know how much I was praising the way From Software does their NPCs. I think the way they do their quest lines is amazing, and I really hope in Elden Ring we can get some more in-depth and involved side quests for those NPCs that I know the game is going to have. So an example that comes to mind when I think of an involved side quest in Dark Souls is Cirrus of the Sunless Realms in Dark Souls 3. With that questline, we actually got to go join her and fight some new NPCs in the game that wouldn't have been accessible if we weren't doing her side quest. Now, my hope for Elden Ring is that we get more like this, but we can actually join those NPCs on a longer adventure that fleshes out their character a lot more than just a couple of fights that they join us in would. So if we look at the way NPC questlines are structured in Dark Souls, the vast majority of them only involve summoning them for the boss fight, where they don't speak, they only do a couple of moves and they really seem lifeless in the fight itself. But I hope in Elden Ring we can take that system and evolve it in a different way, where the fights that the NPCs join us in really flesh out their character more and make them seem more alive, and we get some more depth to the character itself through the fight itself. A perfect example of this is Sigurd in Dark Souls 3 in the Yoren fight. If you do Sigurd's questline, which is actually very involved for a Dark Souls NPC, you unlock an entirely new cutscene and dialogue that fleshes out their characters so much more than just doing a standard fight would. And so I want to see a lot more like that in Elden Ring. Alright, the next thing I want to see in Elden Ring is more expansive PvP and multiplayer. So throughout Dark Souls, the core ways you play multiplayer revolve around co-op and PvP. Now, they introduced the new system of undead battles in Dark Souls 3, which involved a ranking system, and you could kind of do different death matches with like 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, that kind of thing. And I thought that was a lot of fun, but there was a big problem with it. After the first couple months it was introduced, you really couldn't find a match if you tried to play it. And I hope they really expand on that in Elden Ring. Now, when you're playing PvP in Dark Souls, you might come across things like fight clubs or big battles that kind of help the player create their own fun in the world. And I hope From Software in Elden Ring introduces some new systems to provide some new ways to do PvP and co-op that really takes the traditional system we have and evolves it in a new way. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the system we have right now. I'm just saying it might be time for a little bit of an upgrade. Now, what form that upgrade takes, I don't know. But there's a lot of potential for growth there. I know in Dark Souls 3, whenever I'm doing some PvP, some of the most fun I have is when we have like 3v3 invaders versus a gank squad, that kind of thing. Maybe in Elden Ring, and this is just an idea, that could evolve into like 10v10 or some massive scale battles, since we're going to have such a big open world in the game. I think there's a lot of room for growth there, and to me that just sounds like a lot of fun, especially with the combat system. Once again, that's just an idea. Alright, so the fifth and final thing I would love to see in Elden Ring is a more evolved Covenant system. I think it's really due time that the Covenants in the game get a little more character to them, and I hope in Elden Ring they give them a lot more character and a lot more reason to find the Covenant that you like to join. So let me expand on that a little bit. So the Covenants in Dark Souls revolve on two things, co-op or PvP, and that's it. That goes for all the Covenants in the game. None of them really do anything different than that. So I really think the Covenants are in need of a new task to help them level up. And they tried to do this with the Mound Makers, but I really think that kind of fell flat because once people caught on that the Mad Spirits could hit you, nobody wanted to summon them anymore. So an idea that comes to mind is that the Covenants are really tied to the gods in the Dark Souls games. And the only one throughout all three games that I can remember directly being involved with a god was the Dark Moon in Dark Souls 1, where you could actually go speak to Gwendolyn himself. So what comes to my mind right now is that we could be doing tasks that the gods would want to increase their fame throughout the world. Or that whatever task we do in the game for the gods actually affects the world around us and the other Covenants in the game. So it could be like this ongoing war between all the different Covenants that would actually affect the world in a significant way for other players and not just our own world in the game. So for example, in the Pontiff Sullivan area in Dark Souls 3, there's always been this kind of war going on between the Aldrich Faithful and the Blades of the Dark Moon. So a way they could expand on this is that if the Aldrich Faithful killed a lot of the Blades of the Dark Moon, there was like this kind of active tally going on behind the scenes, and that whichever was on the side of the losing faction, maybe the enemies in the area actually got stronger against those people, or there were more. Something like that to kind of evolve the system and give a little bit more meaning behind joining the correct Covenant. But I'm just kind of rambling the ideas in my head right now. Don't take these things too literally, or that I think this is not going to be a good game if they don't do this, that kind of thing. I'm not thinking like that. I'm just kind of spewing out ideas off the top of my head right now. But anyway, those are the top 5 things that I want to see in Elden Ring. And if you did enjoy the video, guys, be sure to drop a like on it and subscribe if you're not already. I'm going to be covering all the latest news about Elden Ring right here on the channel, so if you don't want to miss that, make sure you're subscribed, and definitely go drop a follow on the Instagram. That is where we're going to have the most fun and I can interact with you the most. And until then, I'll catch you in the next video.
I let her test drive out in the west side. She get my best side. Girl, I know you see it coming on your timeline. You're just like fine wine, hit on my line.